Welcome to Cafe Racer Garage. I am Dan, giving you the skills and inspiration to build a motorcycle that you can be proud of. And in today's video, we are building a frame jig. So I've wanted to build a motorcycle jig for some time now, and I was going to build one from scratch because each time I work on a motorcycle, I make modifications, and then I have to build a jig on that particular motorcycle to keep everything square and straight and level. So this will just simplify the entire process. So here's a great example on my Yamaha XJ when I cut off the subframe, creating a new one and trying to fit it. I needed to create a jig around the actual subframe so that everything would stay straight, level, square, and in line with the bike. So although it wouldn't be super difficult to make one from scratch, it's still a ton of work and also any trial and errors along the way. So I did some research to know exactly how to go about making one, but then I found this kit from a company called Chop Sauce, and he does the entire kit that you need to pretty much do exactly what I need to do. So this kit is actually going to save me a ton of time and effort into making something from scratch, not to mention any trial and errors along the way. If you think of it like IKEA furniture, everything is in the kit, except he's done one step further than that and put everything in individual bags. For instance, like the bolts are all allocated for one particular spot, so you know exactly which bolts go where. I highly rate this kit. It's very well put together and well thought out. He also sells the rotisserie part to this frame jig, but I didn't get that because I want to have mine mounted to the top of my hydraulic lift table. You can build this entire kit using 50mm by 50mm square tubing or 2" by 2" for everyone who's not metric, but I've decided to beef mine up a little bit and make it by 3 inches by 2 inches, which is 75 by 50, nearabouts. I'm still going to be using some 50 by 50mm steel tubing for the legs, and all the stuff that I'm using is galvanized and 3mm wall thickness. So the first things first is follow the instructions, and the first step is basically assembling all of the fixtures, which is the base clamp and the neck fixture and all those pieces. And I've gone ahead and done that. It's basically just putting bolts in holes. And the next step is getting your square steel tubing from a local steel supplier. For me, I'm on the Gold Coast and I went to a company called Marshall Steel. Most steel suppliers can cut it to length for you. I got them to roughly cut it just to make it manageable to get it home, and I'll cut it to the exact lengths myself. Once you have your steel cut to length, it's time to start semi-assembling the jig, and then we could get to do some welding. It's quite important to follow the instructions on this section here where it says to weld. Make sure you don't weld down the sides here, weld on these sides, just because otherwise the jig won't go together. There's 7 holes in total that need to be drilled, so 4 for the feet so you can weld on the nuts for those, and also 3 more holes in the smaller 50 by 50 or 2" by 2" box, just so that everything can get put together. I've ground down the gal coating just where I'm going to be doing the welding, and then I'll paint over the top of this with some gal paint just to protect it from rust. Once you've gone ahead and drilled all your holes, then you can go ahead and weld on all of the nuts. And as I said, he's put a bit of thought into this because every single plate has been powder coated so it doesn't rust, and every single nut and bolt is zinc coated except the nuts that you have to weld on. He's just supplied with standard steel. So you don't have to grind off any zinc coating. How good is that? It might just be the small things, but I think it makes a big difference, especially when you're spending money on a kit. And then you can put in the small piece of box on the parts where it mentions. Just make sure you look at the instructions and don't weld it in the wrong spot. And that's all the fabrication that needs to be done on this. Now you can go ahead with your square and your socket sets and your spanners and tighten everything up. I ended up getting a few more pieces from Chop Sauce for this particular kit so that I could build my own, I guess, dedicated subframe platform that I can make it adjustable and it can work for all different bikes. It'll make a bit more sense as I finish building it. I spoke to Travis, the owner of Chop Sauce, and told him I wanted to have an adjustable jig for my subframe, and he went and sent me a 3D CAD drawing, which is exactly what I wanted, so I went ahead and made that, and also got a few parts from him to fit this up to this frame jig perfectly. After fitting the frame to the frame jig, taking quite a few measurements as well as using the digital angle finder, I found a small little twist in the original subframe, which doesn't really matter too much because that's the part we're going to be cutting off and making custom. And now that I have this frame jig, I can dial it in perfectly. Building a motorcycle frame from scratch will be 100% on the cards for me now in the future, but before I can do that, I want to finish off my XV750, and this frame jig will be perfect for that. Because I'm still in the process of building the custom subframe and a custom swing arm for this bike. And if you've enjoyed this video, I've got plenty more just like this one. Go and check them out.